Hi everyone, my name is Rinku Bhattacharya and I am excited to talk to you about my newest cookbook, which is the expanded edition of the Bengali 5-Spice Chronicles. I'm also excited to be doing this presentation with Melissa's Produce. Over the last, quite a few years, I have been using a lot of their produce and their ready-made lentils, vegetables, and all that good stuff. So excited to be doing this presentation and especially excited to be doing this presentation working with Melissa. So now, a little bit about me. I teach Indian cooking. Actually, I teach all kinds of cooking, but a lot of Indian cooking. I write the blog Spice Chronicles, which provides you a lot of practical everyday recipes, a lot of Instant Pot recipes, because I do have a cookbook called Instant Indian. That was what my last presentation was about. And you can find me on social media. Again, search Spice Chronicles, you will find me there. So now, a little bit about the cookbook and how it's organized and why I wrote it. Well, I have a love affair with Indian regional food. I love to look at what, why, how these cuisines developed. There's no such a thing truly as mainstream Indian food because every region of India is pretty unique. It's not unique so much in the spices. You'll probably find similar spices or close enough in all parts of the region. It's in all parts of India. However, how each region uses these spices, adapts them to the natural local produce is what makes the regional cuisine of India unique. Also, every region of India has had different influences based on trade, based on invasions, and that too has shaped the cuisine. So today, and my cookbook, we go into Bengali cuisine. This is the cuisine of the eastern part of India and a country now called Bangladesh. At one point of time, when it was the Indian subcontinent, it was one country. After partition, you have Bangladesh and West Bengal. What is similar between these two regions, again, since a lot of the ingredients are similar, for example, there are a lot of rivers, so a lot of fresh fish is used in the cooking, lots of coconut, mustard, and these are used similarly. This being said, the Bangladeshi cuisine is a little spicier and a little nuanced in some ways. And overall, Bengali cooking, less is more. It's fairly subtle in its use of spices. And what my cookbook does, in addition to providing you almost over 200 recipes shaping the cuisine, it tells you the story of Bengali food through my eyes. So you have a lot of rituals. It tells you about what is eaten when, how it is eaten. There are 15 chapters in the book. The first two sort of give you an idea of the Bengali pantry, what to stock up, and also details the order of the Bengali meal. While food in several parts of India serves family style, the Bengali menu actually has a certain distinct order. And so part of what I'm doing in today's presentation, while I cannot cook the entire meal, I will show you a little bit about how it is organized and how it works through. Back to the book. Then we have the next 4 chapters getting you through rice and flatbreads. This is common in all parts of India. You usually have some kind of a carb with your food. The preferred carb on the Bengali table is rice, but flatbreads and puffed breads are eaten in different aspects of the meal as well. Vegetables are eaten in various forms. You have a lighter starter kind of vegetable. You have crisp, lightly fried vegetables, and then you have vegetarian entrees. The vegetarian entrees are a little more complex. You could have a full-fledged vegetarian Bengali meal. However, more often than not, there is some kind of a protein that is could be something like paneer, which is white cheese. So the next few chapters are dedicated to non-plant-based proteins. So there is a chapter on eggs. There is a chapter on fish. We love fish, so there is all kinds of fish preparations. There is a chapter on poultry, and finally there's a chapter on red meat. Following that, there is a chapter on chutneys. Chutneys are important in the Bengali table, and I do demo a pineapple chutney later on, and I'll tell you more about chutneys. We have drinks and snacks which don't necessarily fit into the main meal, but tea time is a very, very big deal because we Bengalis love to eat, and therefore snacks are very, very important. Finally, there's desserts. And the last chapter is on the global influences on the Bengali table. Kolkata, which is the capital city of West Bengal, used to be also the capital of British India. So there are a lot of trade influences. In addition, it is a port city. So there was a lot of trade, a lot of people coming in. For example, the first Chinatown started in this region. Chinatown in India started in this region. The first Jews that immigrated to India also came to West Bengal and later moved to Western India. So you find bits and pieces of this incorporated into the Bengali table. To be completely comprehensive, obviously, about the global influences would be a book by itself, but I've tried to touch and give you enough recipes to make this whole. Now, this book is an expanded and updated version, so what's new about it? One, I've arranged things a little more pragmatically. Where appropriate, I've given you Instant Pot options. Since I love the Instant Pot, I think it's only fair. And where appropriate, you guys get to see how we can use this in the Bengali kitchen. There are about 60 additional recipes, and the last chapter that I tell you about, the Global Influences chapter, is a completely new chapter. Lots of new dessert recipes. And since most of these recipes outside of the Global Influences chapter are weaved, embedded into the rest of the book, often people ask me, hey, can you point out the new recipes? I honestly really cannot, but if you go through it, I think you'll enjoy it. So now let's get cooking. So we'll talk through a few dishes, but the 2 dishes that I will be demoing in depth, the 3 dishes that I will be demoing in depth is this whole roasted cauliflower. It's cauliflower with a yogurt, mint, and cilantro marinade. We'll be talking through potatoes in a poppy seed sauce, and I will show you how to make a pineapple chutney. And there'll be a couple of other dishes that I'll amalgamate. See that bitter melon? I used it to make lentils with bitter melon. By the way, this is a great dish to boost your immunities. And I'll be serving all of this up with this vegetarian rice dish. It's my grandmother's recipe for a fried rice dish. So a little bit. So here, as you will see, the cauliflower gets marinated and roasted in the oven. This makes a good vegetarian main dish. The potatoes and poppy seeds are simple and comforting. The chutney is actually an interesting creation. It's fairly unique, I think, to the Bengali table in Indian cuisine. And chutneys are made with unripe fruit or tart fruit that doesn't taste all that good to be eaten by themselves. So again, given that it's a fairly sustainable cuisine, what happens with these tart fruit, typically mangoes, tomatoes? In fact, tomatoes were used to make chutney because tomatoes are not a native to the Indian table. They were brought to India, just like the chilies, by the Portuguese. So since people didn't know what to do with them, they started making chutneys with them. And over time, other chutneys came about and evolved and found their place on the Bengali table. In fact, a lot of the British chutneys are probably inspired by these Bengali chutneys. Let me show you how I make my whole roasted cauliflower. This is a very crowd-pleasing dish because what I do is cook the cauliflower in a cilantro, yogurt, sour cream marinade. It also has some maple syrup and black pepper. So again, a very, very balanced marinade that is hitting all the notes of sweet, savory, tangy. Again, a large part of when you're assembling a Bengali meal, it's very important to hit all the flavor notes. We do this use in the spicing. It's very, very Ayurvedic. It's also what harks back to the concept of umami. If you're hitting all your taste buds, chances are you are having a flavor explosion while you're eating it. And from a more practical standpoint, if you're working to get all this balance, you're including a whole bunch of ingredients which help you balance out the meal along with balancing out the palate. So I'm using this gorgeously colored cauliflower here, so I actually don't add turmeric to this. Of course, it's fine with any color, but I think the golden yellow color makes it pop. So to prep the cauliflower, you want to very carefully remove it from its base, because the deal here is you don't want too much of the thick base. This was great. And you don't want your cauliflower to break apart while you're doing this. Once in a blue moon, you get those, well, actually, I should say, in season, you get cauliflower that has those beautifully gorgeous heads. What I then do is save the whole head and use it for plating. Next up, I bring the foil, which is what we will be wrapping the cauliflower in. By the way, traditionally, a dish like this used to get wrapped in banana leaves. Banana trees are prolific in West Bengal and actually Bangladesh as well. And every part of the banana plant is used in some shape or form, and the leaves usually are used either as a serving plate, which can be discarded and composted very eco-friendly, or used as a wrapping for steaming. You want to get the marinade in. One of my suggestions is when you're cutting the cauliflower into groups, sort of think of serving pieces, because what will happen is and why are we getting this in? Because you want the flavor to permeate the entire cauliflower. So if you can see what I'm sort of doing, yes, I'm creating deep grooves, but I'm also creating them in wedges. So, all done. And what you want to do is pry this apart as much, again, as I said, we all know our goal is not to dismantle the cauliflower. And I pry and poke this in the same way that I chopped it, basically my own mini cauliflower assembly line. Don't get rid of the bits and pieces that break apart. Trust me, when it's cooked, it's all good. Okay. So the rest of it goes and coats the cauliflower. So you don't need too much marinade, but you need enough to create the flavor base for your cauliflower. And now what you do is seal it nicely. Make sure nothing is leaking. Pop this in a baking dish. Now I like to do it in a dish that I can serve it in. You do you. And then this goes into the oven for 350 degrees. It goes in a 350-degree oven for about 40 minutes. Now that the cauliflower is on its way, let me tell you what I'm doing with potatoes. I'm cooking them in a delicate poppy seed paste. I'm using two kinds of potatoes here. I'm using the golden or yellow Dutch potatoes, and I'm using Melissa's red Dutch potatoes. Traditionally, this dish has potatoes all peeled. Now, the good thing is these potatoes are very thin-skinned. So actually, I've peeled the yellow ones and I am keeping the skin on for the red Dutch potatoes. I just think they look so pretty. I'm a very, very visual cook, so I have a hard time getting rid of color when I see it. So the potatoes get all chopped up, and these get cooked with the 5-spice blend that I have named the book after, and I will tell you in a second all about the 5-spice blend. Now, just a note, not all the recipes, as you can see, have the 5 spices. It's just more of a symbolic name because the 5-spice blend that we call Panch Phoron, Panch being meaning 5, Phoron meaning tempering, is just very unique and ubiquitous to the Bengali table. So here is my spice box. Ooh, and here are the 5 spices. Let me bring them a little closer so that you can see them. So the theme of balance will come along again and again and again. So these 5 spices are also meant to capture the 5 flavor palettes that I talk about. So the 5 spices here is fennel for a touch of sweetness, fenugreek for a little bit of bitterness, mustard to give it a sharp and pungent flavor, nigella seeds and cumin to give it a savory, smoky taste. You know, I almost feel these 5 spices are like life. They throw a little bit of everything at it. So let's move on to the potatoes. As the oil gets hot, you can tell that it's getting hot because you can actually start smelling the oil. So let's give it another minute, and at this point, so obviously I've added in some red onions, which you saute lightly. Note here, these potatoes get cooked with a poppy seed paste which is added towards the end. Poppy seeds are white, tiny, and when ground up, result in a nice creamy sauce. It's actually very good for you because all seeds have a natural dose of omega-3. Now, assuming you are unfamiliar to poppy seeds and don't have them around, what you want to do, you can use almond paste instead. Tends to be a little bit richer, but works. Here goes in my potatoes. Add in salt to taste. and throw in some water to allow the potatoes to cook through. So while the potatoes are cooking, what I have is I've brought the cauliflower out of the oven. And you know what? You can serve it like this, or you can pop it out and put it back into the serving container. As you can see, it is so tender. Bits and pieces have been falling out. And garnish it as you see fit. Put the juices back, it's all good. Move the foil away. And so as you can see, the potatoes are quite cooked down. You want to make sure they are soft, soft, soft. At this point, I add in the poppy seeds. And you know, this dish can have chilies to your taste. So we are getting started now with the chutney. I have some oil heating here. You want to get it nice and hot so that the spices bloom when I add them to the pan. In terms of spices is the 5 spice, that is the Pachforon. Crackle. So let's see if I can get some instant crackle with these spices. Yeah, see? You know, I believe spices all have their own language, and mustard is a very talkative spice. So next up what goes in is minced ginger, 1 dried red chili. Now the red chili will not give much heat to this, but it will give a nice flavor burst. Here I have the pineapple. So you do a little bit of sauteing. Now the chutney is a sweet tart creation. So what I'm adding to this is mild vinegar. What I have here is golden balsamic. And understand the reason why I'm adding in vinegar is because the pineapple is very ripe. You do want a distinct tartness. And finally, some sugar. You know, do this to taste. I don't like too much sweetness, and also the nature of the sauce has to be done to taste. Now the pineapple pieces are your choice. I have them a little larger than one would traditionally do, just because I wanted to show you guys. So now you let this simmer for about 5 to 10 minutes, closer to 5 actually. And what goes into this is either dried raisins or dried cranberries. I like to use cranberries just because of the color. Using dried cranberries obviously is not very traditional. Raisins are the more commonly found dried fruit. And so you can see that the sauce has thickened considerably. And at this point, I finish off by adding in some of the roasted spice blend. So let's now talk about plating the Bengali meal and how to enjoy it. So traditionally, what happens is the rice or the bread is the centerpiece. Unless it's a very elaborate meal, you will not have two kinds of carbs. So either it's rice or it's chapatis or other kind of flatbreads. Now, interestingly enough, what I'm doing is a much simpler version of a typical thali. If you are serving up something like a festive rice dish like this, usually there's a little bit of white rice on the side. Because some of the beginning dishes, such as these lentils with bitter melon, a festive rice dish like this is considered too complex and the flavors get cluttered. The cuisine is simple, but it is very particular. I mean, the goal and concept here is to get the nuances of the simpler flavors. So now, let's see, how do we go about plating it? Oh, one final note on plating. When you're serving a compendium of dishes like this, the preferred way is to keep them separate in different bowls, so that once again you're not cluttering the flavors. Traditionally, either bell metal bowls or steel bowls are used. I like to use these glass bowls just because in today's make-ahead culture, these tend to heat up nicely. These are papadums, and I will tell you in a bit what we do with them. Let me see if I can plate this rice dish. So, of course, you can serve the rice as is, just, pile it on the plate. A good way, or what's preferred way, to serve rice, the Bengali way, is what I'm doing is pushing it in to see if when I unmold it, I can get this in a neat round shape. Not done it in a while, so let's see what happens. There you go. There's an order. You start with the first dish. In this case, it's the lentils with bitter melon. Then you have the poppy seeds, the potatoes with poppy seeds rather. And in this case, I am actually using the cauliflower as a main dish. Let's see if I can cut and get a veg. And what happens if, like me, you run out of space? You can arrange this on the outer side. In fact, I will try to do that with the chutney. What's missing from my thali is two things. There is no dessert, and usually some sort of a protein. It can be a vegetarian protein like paneer would be added here. And the chutney has a very unique place. It's usually served up right after you finish everything before the dessert, because it's supposed to help you break the palate between the savory and the sweet. So it's kind of sweet tart and usually served with these papadums. So I hope this inspires you to go and try some Bengali cooking. And I enjoyed talking to you and sharing the Bengali cuisine with you. Once again, folks, the book is the Bengali Five Spice Chronicles. And by the way,